everyone. Welcome to Consciously Connected Conversations. We are wrapping up our theme of alternative education. And today we're doing that in the way of voice notes from two parents who are currently unschooling. And we're getting a little bit of their vibe around what unschooling is like for them. So those will be playing as the episode rolls. And I will also be sharing my own experience of unschooling. It's been interesting to be on the questioner's side of this podcast so far. We've had 4 episodes. So we've spoken about self-directed and progressive education. We've spoken about advocacy and self-directed learning. We've spoken about world schooling, and we've spoken about unschooling into adulthood. So I will put the link of all of those episodes down below. If you haven't seen them yet, please go check them out. Today we're talking about unschooling, just to wrap it up, because every time I've been on the questioning side, I'm like, I'd actually kind of like to be on the answering side, just to give my perspective and my 10 cents on unschooling and education and where it's been for me. So I'm going to share a little bit about my journey in unschooling, and how I got here. And then I have voice notes from two parents who are unschooling, and we're all from different backgrounds, different areas in South Africa. But I haven't listened to the voice notes yet as I'm recording these because I wanted to give a fresh answer. I'm curious to see if our answers are similar or different as we go. So the first question that I have asked of myself and the other parents that have commented is, why did you choose unschooling, and what led you down this path? What took you into this unschooling journey? So I'm going to talk a little bit about my journey with my children and my family and how we got to this point. So I have a background in education. I started studying teaching when I finished school. My second year out of school, I took a gap year, did a little bit of studying and didn't know what I wanted to do, but eventually landed on teaching because I knew I wanted to work with children. And the more I was around children, the more I realized that they had so much to teach. I could see how much I could learn from them. And it took me into the normal journey of schooling. So I studied teaching and eventually went on to teach in the normal school system. So I taught in public education, and I taught in private education, and I taught in very small private education. So I saw a few different environments of teaching. I found myself coming back to one module that I did when I studied. And I can't remember the exact name of the module, but it was all about the future of education, or like, I wish I could remember what it was called, but it was like it opened my mind to so much because we explored the well-known like Montessori, Waldorf, alternative education styles. And then we started looking at like other stuff that was happening in Finland and like all over the world in other areas. And this book that they prescribed with our study material, I just sat and read it and read it. I was just like, wow, this is so cool because there's so much still to come. And what stood out for me the most was giving children the opportunity to guide their own learning. And I found that going into the school system, that part of it felt very difficult to latch onto because of I call it checklists, I guess, because of the expectations that are there in the school system to make sure that you are checking the boxes and kids are learning the things that they need to learn. But I found that very difficult as a teacher who wanted to know what the kids wanted to know. So for years, I taught in schools. And then when I had my children, I stayed at home with them. And naturally, we just began unschooling from babies to toddlers, and COVID hit. And we basically did preschool unschooling without really knowing what unschooling was. But at that time, I was looking up alternative education methods, and I was finding a lot of interesting stuff online. Unschooling, wild schooling, world schooling, and I was like, whoa, this is so interesting. Actually, I don't even think I found world schooling, but I'd found other methods, and it started to grow in my mind and in my body, like, this is what I want to do, but I don't know how. And eventually I decided that I was going to send my kids to school because it felt too overwhelming. I knew the school system, I knew what it did, I knew how it worked, and I felt like that would probably be the easiest road to take. And then I could unschool them at home after school and do other things. So fast forward to them being in school, I eventually, after my kids had been in school for almost 2 years, decided I wanted to go teach in schools again because now my kids were at school. I wanted to find my heart again and why I chose teaching in the first place. And I went back into the school system, and because I had unschooled myself, so basically, from the time I left the school system to the time I went back into the school system, it was 7 years. And over that time, I had a very, I don't know what the word is, tumultuous. No, I had a very interesting unschooling journey for myself where I was questioning my own school journey. I was questioning why we do what we do in the school system, why my kids are learning what they're learning, where it's going to take them, what the future holds, etc., etc. There's obviously more to it, but it's a short space of time. But it got me to a point that when I went back into the school system, I did not fit in the school system. I had unschooled myself to such a degree that I was incredibly uncomfortable. And it wasn't the school's fault. I mean, they were running like a school, and they were actually a really great school doing what schools do, and kids were learning and kids were happy. But I myself felt very restricted by the curriculum. I felt restricted by the school day. I felt restricted by the admin. I just felt like I want to explore what these kids want to know. I want to find out what I want to know. I didn't want to open another textbook. And after 6 months, I made the decision to take my kids out of school and for me to unschool them, which was interesting because I didn't think that they would choose that, but they did. They were very excited when I explained it to them. And it's been a very interesting road because unschooling literally is like a daily journey of what are we doing? Like, why are we doing this? I feel like we're settling into it more naturally now, but it is something that has taken a lot of courage and a lot of trust to fall into because I do very much believe in the concept as somebody who my work is intuitive. So I do intuitive coaching, I do mediumship readings, I do conscious dance, I do conscious voice work, and all of it is encouraging people to tap into themselves. What do I want to do? Who do I want to be? What is guiding me? Rather than me saying, you're coming to me now to do this, I say, what have you brought? Let's figure it out together. And that to me is what unschooling, excuse me, what unschooling is for me. I'm unschooling still with my children, saying, what do you want to learn? What are we going to do today? And sometimes I come up with something. How cool would it be to do this? And then we start having the conversation and exploring. And I'm going to get into a little bit of the challenges and the rewards in the next question. For now, I'm going to add the voice notes of the two parents that sent their thoughts in about why they chose to unschool, and I'm going to play those after this. So listen to those, and then I'll come back and tell you about the challenges we faced on our unschooling journey.
Hi, Claire. Okay, yes. So to answer your question about how we chose unschooling or why and our journey so far, I can start by saying even before I had children, I always had a strong desire that I wanted to homeschool them, educate them myself, take the responsibility of raising my children as a whole, not just the parent after school. But my husband was initially not on board with homeschooling. So when all our friends' kids went to school in kindergarten, he felt a bit of pressure. So the year before grade R, I'd say grade RR, we had Ebert in kindergarten for about 2 months. Ended up in a lot of tears and frustration, both on Ebert's part and mine. Really broke my heart to drop him off there every day. And so in the end, my husband agreed and we pulled him out and we started homeschooling. But kindergarten's so easy. We just played and painted and I took that time to dive really deep into the different methodologies of homeschooling and the different styles. And unschooling and eclectic homeschooling resonated the most with me. So I went down the rabbit hole of unschooling. I watched numerous videos and listened to podcasts by Pamela Rickia, Sue Alvis, Sarah Dodd. I read books by John Holt. I really went deep into this. And yeah, the more I went into the topic, the more I felt this is the way kids should learn. It makes so much more sense. So I went that route. My husband is mostly focused on business and he's away overseas a lot, especially during the time when the boys were younger. So it was a lot of responsibility to make these decisions and to go with it. But the journey was fun, brutal at times, nerve-wracking at other times, and a bit messy sometimes. Finding your bearings and letting kids go in their own direction makes for a bit of chaos sometimes. But overall, I can say we had fun with that, especially in the elementary years. Then came the more middle school years, which started to make me a bit more nervous as I don't have a community around me that really does unschooling, and we're in a really small town. So the journey got a bit more difficult. And every now and then I'd throw in academic work or books for a week or two, and then I'd realize, why am I doing this? It's not working. It's frustrating everybody. And I can really see them just put a block in front of their brains, not learning anything. And then as soon as they get the time to go play a game or whatever, I can see them typing and words that they won't even speak aloud, but they can type them, and they had chats with their friends. And then I'd see the learning again without me having to force the learning, and I'd go back to my flow. So our journey has been one of ups and downs. And high school, oh my word, when our eldest went to high school, not grade 8. Grade 8, we put a bit more pressure on, just a lot of reading. I always read to them when they were younger, and as soon as they began reading, my eldest was really into it, and he started reading the whole series of Wings of Fire. So that was really fun. But then came grade 9 in high school, and we felt the pressure of getting the credits and rolling into the system. So grade 9 was a full-on year for him of academic schooling. And it was a disaster. I could see it killing his passion inside. So we went back to unschooling this year completely. And now both he and I just have to get out of the box of academics and find our footing again. But it's getting to be fun again. And he's enjoying learning again. So glad we just bounced back to that in the end.
Hello, everyone. My name is Tamarin, and I am a mom of 3. I have a 5-year-old and a 7-year-old and an 11-year-old. And I myself went through the public schooling system, as did my husband, and we have both been through university. I decided to complete a degree in BCom law. I then went on to do my practical training before I was admitted as an attorney and began practicing in the field. A few years later, I had my first child, became a mum, and I never really envisaged anything other than what was the norm for me at the time. I assumed that I would go back to my career, that my child would be taken care of by somebody else while I was doing that, and that at some stage they would attend school. There wasn't really any thought of an alternative to that. Circumstances at the time led me to leave my work, and I stepped into a full-time caretaking role at home with my 8-month-old baby, and had no idea really of how it was going to unfold. So my journey into unschooling really was that. It was an unfolding. It wasn't a single decision that I made or that I made with my husband, but a series of experiences, decisions, shifts within our perspectives that led us down this road. And it started to feel very apparent that we were being called to be the kind of parents that were not generally supported and celebrated within our culture, within our mainstream society, and that we would be swimming upstream. But it was a cause that we decided to take on anyway, and it became very important to us and central to our family and the way that we wanted to be and function. And there were a few key people and places along the way in the early days when I was going out into the world with my first child that were part of me realizing that I did have other options. And so I started looking into that, researching, reading, listening, trying to find out as much as I could about the options that I have, and being in conversation with other mothers at meetups, and then also within the social media space, allowed me to start grappling with these ideas and feeling for myself what resonates, what fits. But I was not immune to the pressure of feeling that I need to begin some kind of structured learning with my child from an early age. And I would try some of those things and then observe and notice how it wasn't what he needed. It was often bringing up anxiety for him. And so I really just decided to let him lead the way and show me how and what he needed. And I would be there to support and provide resources and access to the things that he needed. And so from then on, our approach to education has been more and more aligned with our interests, with our passions, with our energy levels. And our focus and motivation is driven largely by that for almost a decade now. I would describe our approach to education as being non-coercive, non-punitive learning, and really an extension of our parenting approach, which values collaboration, mutual respect, deep communication, safety, and belonging.
Okay, so now I'm back to talk to you about the challenges that I have faced or we have faced as a family on the unschooling journey. So, unschooling for us has meant, what do you want to learn? How are we going to do it? And the challenge has been that my children were at school. So, for them, a big challenge has been shifting their mindset from this is what I have to know to what do I want to know. Another challenge has been like being faced with questions from people asking, but what if, or what about when your children want to go to university, and what about when your children, or how do you know they're learning enough? And I feel like my whole mindset around school has shifted to a point where there is no learning enough. I feel personally that school has shifted into segments where we have somehow deemed certain things worthy of learning, and everything that falls outside of that has to be within the child's like free time. And I think what I'd really like to do is help my kids focus on what do they want to learn, even if it doesn't fit into what school looks like. So more art, more music, more dance, more nature, more, and ironically or intuitively, the things that they would have learned at school come up anyway. So they are learning the things they would have learned. We're just doing it differently. And I think my role, and that's another challenge, but it's been really a really interesting and really fun challenge for me, is learning to be the coach rather than the teacher. I do not have all the knowledge. I do not possess the this is what you need to know. I am the guide and the coach, but there's a better word and I can't think of it now. But the support where my kids will say, this is what I want to learn. And I'm there to say, okay, how do you think we can do that? What do we need to do? Okay, let's go see if we can find that. Or, okay, we can't do that today. When should we put that on the calendar? And it's been really interesting to enjoy this journey with them, but to also realize that sometimes they actually just want to choose schoolwork, which has been fascinating because I didn't think that they would. I thought unschooling would mean all they'd want to do is learn in nature and we'd be outside every day. And sometimes they'll say, can I have a worksheet? And that to me, I do believe is unschooling. If my kid said, I want to go back to school, I still view that as unschooling because I'm giving them the option to choose how they wish to learn. So my oldest daughter still wants to do a lot of normal regular schooling, worksheets, tests, assessments. She enjoys that. It gives her, and it's internally motivated. She wants to see how she can do on the tests and she wants to learn in that way. And the more she's given that space to do it, the more she is guided into her own learning, because then she'll say, I don't feel like I know a lot about this. Let me look it up. And then we sit together and I say, oh, this is interesting. What else do you want to look up? What else do we need to know if we're going to do this or do that? So it's really like an exploratory journey. And I feel like I'm talking in circles, but it makes sense in my brain and in my body. It doesn't always make sense when it comes out of my mouth. But those have been our biggest challenges so far.
When it comes to the biggest hurdles and challenges we faced, oh, there are so many. Being in a small town was the first thing. Having my kids be asked constantly, why are they not in school? What are they doing? And we don't do a curriculum, we don't follow rules, we don't have that structure that academic curriculum has, made for a lot of questions and a lot of weird faces and weird opinions from other people. Especially it's a community where a lot of people know us because of my husband having a business here. So it makes it difficult. All of our friends, their kids are in school and they question the kids on things they know. And obviously in unschooling, there's kids learn at a different pace. So they don't necessarily do math in the way that the kids in the school do it. They just do life math. And then they get asked these strange questions and have no clue how to answer them. But how we got over that is I just gave my kids the tools to say, I don't know that right now, but did you know this? They always had a witty comeback, or I tried to do that, have them do something different. And we, in the end, decided just to say, no, we use a few different curriculum options just to silence the questions because I couldn't always deal with that. And then what were some of the other challenges? Getting out of my own mental block on how school should be done. So even though my heart was fully in the unschooling and seeing that my kids learn to read without this forceful reading practices and how they took on writing when they needed it, it felt good. But then every now and then I'd get into my academic box and feel, oh no, we've got to write. Oh, look at how terrible their writing is. Oh, they can't spell. We have to do a bit of all about spelling. And I have all these resources, and then I'd, as I said before, go into that and we'd try for a week or what, do the academic thing, and then decide, oh, once again, why are we doing this? So I had a lot of those challenges, and especially now, as I mentioned, in the high school years. But going back to research helps me a lot every time. Listening to other parents, it takes a lot of research, and I think especially in South Africa, in this smaller communities where you don't have that much support, it takes a lot of my time to get myself on board with the way my boys learn, and my little girl as well now. It is a challenge, and I think it will always be a challenge for me, most of all, to keep out of that academic box and out of the way of thinking, but they have to do it like this. Oh, they're not going to get into college. Oh, they're not going to get into a university. They're not going to get exemption. I get so focused on that sometimes that I have to keep going back to conversations with my sons and ask, but what is it that you want? What do you want to learn? What excites you? Because I can see that spark, and then you just see once again how the things click. And I found communities online, unschooling groups on Facebook, and as I said, a lot of podcasts and here and there questions online. It's not the same as having a community. Wish I had a real community, but it works. And I have one friend, a true great friend, that is also a bit more informal with her schooling. Until about grade 9, her kids just read and do math, and we did a bit of that when I got nervous, so we had some academic time, with a lot of reading and focus on maths. And when it got hard, we kick it a bit outside, and then we do it again for a bit. Yeah, but she was really an inspiration, and she has 2 boys in university in Australia already, and 2 kids more or less my eldest's age. So it helps to have her in my life when I have questions and wonder. They do follow a more academic route from grade 9 onwards, though. And that's where I wanted to follow in the same shoes, and just realized I'm killing my kids' passion. And I have to find my own way now. And we have to keep focused on that, even though I get nervous. So I try to seek out my community online whenever I do have doubts about what we are doing.
When I'm thinking of hurdles and challenges in an unschooling approach, I am almost inclined to say, and this is probably debatable, that the nature of unschooling is such that there are minimal hurdles and challenges because of the flexibility that it allows, and especially for children and families that are neurodivergent. But yes, there are some, and I've heard some of these mentioned by others in the community. So I think they are fairly common among unschoolers. Firstly, I am thinking of the fact that we are never truly done deschooling ourselves as parents. So there is always something to unpack. There is always the opportunity for digging deeper within ourselves, seeking to understand. So I see this as much a gift as it is a challenge, because it also facilitates growth. Another challenge that comes to mind would be protecting and defending our choices from scrutiny and judgment. I have found that this requires us to learn discernment. For example, when to enter into conversations and when not to. I feel that the antidote to this is information. So equipping myself with the answers that I need to help me feel confident. So again, I see this as not only a challenge, but it often pushes me out of my comfort zone and brings about growth as I question myself in a healthy way, to become aware of what my own fears are and what areas I need clarity in for myself. This can, however, be particularly tricky when it comes to extended family, and it becomes important to work on healthy boundaries, how to set them. And I have found it immensely helpful having a counselor on board that I can have regular debriefings and conversations with, to help me gain clarity on what is important to me and my family, and how to navigate tricky family relationships so that your decisions can come from a place of intuition and knowing, as opposed to fear-based decisions. A third challenge that comes to mind would be learning to balance the needs and desires of each member of the family, especially where there are multiple children and especially where their needs and desires may be in conflict with one another. For example, where one child prefers to cocoon at home while another child is very active. And for me, the best way to go about this has been through collaboration, family discussions. Often while we're having a meal together, we will talk about the things that we would like to do or the things that are coming up and how we can make accommodations for other family members and coming up with creative solutions to enable everyone's needs to be met as best you can, and making sure that everyone gets heard and that everyone is having a turn to do the things that are important to them. And my last point is about the loneliness that often comes with swimming upstream. It's often difficult to find like-minded families and mothers who are within your geographical location, who are also available for socializing in a way that feels supportive. So we often need to embrace diversity in order to create community and a sense of belonging for ourselves and our children. And then again, discernment plays a role here in recognizing healthy relationships and safe spaces within which you and your children can socialize with other families. However, for parents who are often first generation unschoolers, it really does become important for us to have others around us who are like-minded. And in that regard, I feel that the internet and technology and social media has gone a long way to close some of this gap, as we are able to establish connections that go far beyond our local geographical location, and in this way feel part of a global network and redefine what our community looks like.
Okay, so I'm back now to talk a little bit about our biggest rewards and the things that have been really good that I've noticed on our unschooling journey. The one that stands out the most is that my children have learned the things that worried me, like when I'll say to myself, I wish they would do more writing. The more I try to get them to write, the more resistance I create every single time. Why don't we try this diary entry? And I don't want to do that. And then I'll say, well, let's just try. And it's just not fun. They'll maybe do it, but it will just not be, it won't be fully immersive. And the more I just backed away, they eventually chose those activities on their own. So I'm saying this because my youngest daughter didn't enjoy writing. She didn't feel confident with her spelling. She didn't feel confident with um, putting her thoughts onto paper. And it didn't matter what worksheets or prompts or creative writing activities I brought to her, she wasn't ready yet. And if she'd been at school, she would have had to have done it. Fine, she probably would have done great. It maybe would have accelerated the process, but it would have been an externally motivated thing. You have to do this, do it. On the flip side, she chose activities that I never would have thought of for her, and she started writing on her own. And at first, there was no punctuation, there were no anything. And I gently prompted things, but I also backed off. And eventually, it developed without me even saying. Eventually, because she reads a lot, she would then start adding capital letters, and slowly but surely, this journey grew. And it felt so exciting to watch because it wasn't on my timeline, it was on her timeline. And maybe it was a little bit later than kids of her age, maybe like 6 months later than she would have written a story. She wrote her own story, but it was hers, and it was something she had chosen to do, and that was a huge thing to sit back and watch. um Another reward for me, or another good thing, has been our days have slowed down a lot, as in, like, we wake up a little bit later. It's I still encourage a bit of a rhythm to our day rather than a routine. So we wake up at a certain time, we do our normal morning rhythms, and then we learn when we're ready to learn. And what I have noticed is that sometimes, because I'm trusting my children's inner rhythm, sometimes we will sit for a block of 4 hours and they will do as much work as they would have done, let's say, over 2 weeks of maths, let's say. They'll do it in 2 hours because they'll do a whole bunch of different themes in maths, and they'll be like, oh, that was so fun. And then maths is done for a few days. It's like, and the reinforcement, like we're always taught we need to reinforce it every day. I've noticed that's not for my children. That's not an issue. Like they can come back to, let's say, fractions 2 months later, and they still remember it because they chose to do it and they were fully embodied in the process. Those are the things I'm seeing from my kids. Trusting them has been really rewarding because it means trusting myself and saying, as a mom, I know what I'm doing here, and I don't always know what I'm doing. I still don't always know what I'm doing. Don't get me wrong, there are days where I'm just like, maybe we just need to go to school. It's just easier because today they don't feel like doing anything. But then 2 days later, they're doing a whole bunch of stuff. Sometimes they will choose an activity I've never thought of. The other day, they chose, let's make an arcade because they felt like going to the arcade. I said, we're not going to the arcade today. It's a normal weekday. Let's make an arcade at home. And they were making tickets and they were making games that they set up for each other to do and for me to do. And we were doing the games, and then we had to spin a wheel to see how many tickets we would win. And then we had to add up our tickets to see how many we got. And then they put prizes like you do at the arcade, and you had to get a certain number of tickets to win those prizes. And it was like an integrative process because it had maths, it had language, because they were Googling stuff, they were looking things up, they were writing down things, they were talking through the process. And to the average person, maybe it wouldn't look like learning, it looks like a game. To someone who really enjoyed, another thing I really enjoyed was integrative learning. That was another module we did when I studied. I love watching integrative learning from kids where they integrate like tons of different themes. So maths and English and languages and confidence. They had to confidently speak about like their game and explain it to us. And I didn't come up with that. So they were doing their English oral and it's all there. And I didn't have to do anything. And there was no resistance because they chose it. And just in their own time, they created a project that included so many things that they would have learned in school in a different way. And it's not to say learning it in school is bad or wrong or I'm doing it right and it's better. This is the journey that we've chosen because I really want to see how different it can be when a child chooses their own journey. Um, is it going to work 100%? Am I going to turn back and say, we've done it, this has been awesome? I don't know. But every day we're going to trust it and we're going to keep moving. And if one day they want to go to school, they go to school. If we want to keep unschooling, we keep unschooling. But for now, the journey is very rewarding. So much so that sometimes I just want to shout it from the rooftops or take a million videos and photos of them and post it somewhere so people can see this can work. But at the same time, going, this is our journey. It's not everyone's journey. It's not going to suit every family. I'm ecstatic about learning, and not every parent is going to feel excited about that. It's maybe not their area of interest. It's always been my area of interest. I started off, that was the reason I wanted to be a teacher in the first place. So all I'm saying is that's been the journey for me. And it's been so nice sharing it in this space. It's been exciting asking other people their stories, but then going, oh, I want to share mine as well. So I've shared it here and I hope it helps somebody on their journey. But yeah, I'm going to post the next 2 voice notes after this, and I hope you enjoy them and I hope you learn something from one of us.
Rewards. I'd say seeing my kids grow in their passions, firstly, and how they just picked up reading by themselves eventually without all the pressure was so rewarding. But the passions that they can delve into early on in their life is, I think, the best reward one can ask for. in this journey. They have so much time to delve really deep into their passions. Our eldest is an aspiring chef. He bakes and cooks and sells sourdough bread. And he was always passionate about music, but everyone tried to push him into Unisan, everything early on. But this year, finally, with his tutor that eventually allowed him to go the way he wanted, this year he finally decided now he wants to do classical. So he's doing classical guitar and piano and music theory grade 1, 2, 4 in 1 year. So it's so rewarding to see him finding his feet and his passions and just delving into it with all his heart, how he's involved in community, and seeing that, everybody always has this socialization issue with homeschooling in general, and even more so with unschooling. They think the kids do nothing, but they do. They just do what they're passionate about, which means they're so much more involved. And he's involved with church, youth, archery, development programs. He's even going to start tutoring younger music students. So that is an ultimate reward for me. Our middle son as well, he was a more struggling reader, but he got it also eventually, mostly through gaming. They both got it mostly through gaming. And now he is so passionate about making videos and even AI videos. So he will be sitting at a desk, typing away at what he wants to make and create and post the videos to YouTube. And electronics, he delves deep into electronics. So seeing them have that time to focus on what they are really passionate about and love, a time that they wouldn't have in a normal construct of school, is just the best reward of all. And my daughter and my middle son love their gymnastics, so they have so much time to delve into that and give it their all. Yeah, they really have more time than you would in the schooling system, and that is, what more can you ask for? And then I'd say my future hope for them all is that they will continue discovering their passions, and that the fact that they already know what they want to do, especially my eldest and my middle son getting there now at such a young age to know where their interests lie, just because they had this opportunity to explore and not be forced into certain boxes. I really hope they take that with them, and that we can do this end out. As I say, high school is a bit more of a challenge for me and the kids, ensuring you somehow make up the credits if you want to keep the university pathways open. So I really hope that in future we can find our footing and just discover the routes that will really help us keep the doors open for them, if it be academical or wherever their heart's desire leads them. I really hope that unschooling gives my kids the opportunities to be strong in their learning, in their work ethic, in entrepreneurship, taking on the world head on without any fear.
So, for those who have listened up to now, I just wanted to say a huge thank you to Tamarin and Barbara for sending through your voice notes. It's a very different way to do the podcast. I felt like it would give people an opportunity to really share like their full story rather than breaking it up into questions. But yeah, if you have any questions for me or for either of our guests, please just let me know on the Consciously Connected Gmail account or on our Instagram. And yeah, just a huge thank you to the two ladies who sent their stories and their shares. It's just been so lovely to listen to their side of it. And a lot of things that they've said that I was like, oh, I wish I'd said that. So just to see how similar the journey can be and also how different it can be, it's really, really amazing. So I will hand over to myself doing the final little bit of video. I hope you have a lovely day, and I hope this was helpful. Go check out our other videos. Please like, subscribe, share with anyone you think might be interested. And I'll catch you in the next theme, which I don't know what it is yet. Let's see what happens. I'm unschooling it. I'm letting it come to me. Bye.